Hey friends, my name is Willa Mamet and I'm here with you live from my kitchen in Oakland. I've never done a Facebook Live, so I'm assuming that this is working into the ethers. And if it's not, well, being an introvert, I'm used to talking to myself, so I suppose that's okay. Um, for those of you who don't know me, I am an independent musician. I sing and I write songs and I play music. Piano and guitar and some ukulele, sort of pretending to play ukulele. I play with friends. I play out by myself. I book my own stuff. I book stuff for my duo, me and Paul Miller, beloved friend and musical partner. And I spend a lot of time poking around on the internet, trying to see how music can live better and just thrive, right? Like small venues are closing, the label system is kicking, screaming, nobody knows what's happening. Uh, Streaming is a mess. Do people even buy CDs? All of these questions. So I have these questions. I figured you might also have these questions. And I wanted to make a space for us to talk. And I want to be clear, I'm not an expert on things. I can tell you about my own experience and I can tell you about all the performers who um, live in my heart and my life. And I've grown up in a showbiz family, so seen a lot of it. That doesn't make me anything in particular other than willing to talk about it and willing to host a conversation. So if you are here and I welcome you, thank you for chiming in. Bring questions. Let's find the people who can answer them if that's not me. It might be you. Maybe we can help each other. So I have some ideas. How to be a hero about how to be a hero for independent music. And I've been working on a writing piece, which is kind of more my style, for a while, and it occurred to me maybe it could be more of a conversation. So I'm going to go through my list, and if you're here, let's have a chat. So number one for how to be a hero for independent music, and I don't just mean for musicians, I mean for anyone who is involved in music, which is a lot of us. At this point, I've lost count of which number is for what, but it's basically years worth of music are being listened to every day, streaming largely. But we're all of us in love with music because music is a type of storytelling, and storytelling is a basic human need. So so this is for everybody. So number one thought on, and these aren't in a particular order in terms of severity or importance, they're just sort of how they fell out of my head, and so they're how they're falling out of my mouth to you. Buy music directly from the artist, or as directly from the artist as you can. If you can't actually buy music at a show or from someone's hand, buy it from their website, buy it from kind of the smallest website you can manage to buy it from. Maybe that's Bandcamp, maybe it's CD Baby, maybe it's some other site I haven't heard of yet, and I would love to hear from you about where you're buying your music. Buying from the big guys has less of a trickle down to the people who are actually making the music. And regardless of where we're selling it, we, the musicians, still have to pay the same amount for each cut that we're making. So if we're only making a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a cent, we're still paying the same for production. So buy it as closely as you can from the artist. The other thing about this is, speaking as an artist, it feels really good to actually see that happen, to either see it happen through my website, where I'm the one addressing a label and sending a CD off to somebody, or at a show, to get to see that someone has been affected by the music is a type of energy in itself. People talk about money being energy, but so is that exchange, and it feeds us, and it gives us a little hope to go on. It puts gas in the tank, in this tank. So if you have a chance to do that, or if you go to a show, you see someone and you know you're going to listen to their music, just buy it from them. Even if you don't listen to the CD, even if you're going to digitize it, buy it from them. A lot of people now also have digital download codes. That's my thought about buying the music from people. Let's see. Oh, speaking of digital, if you listen to someone a lot on a streaming platform, if it's more than just one or two, please buy the music from them. Artists, the numbers are so, I only have a liberal arts degree, right? I don't know that much about math. But I can tell you that the numbers are really, really, really small of small of small of small that people make from streaming. I mean, you have to have so many millions of streams to make even a few $1,000s. It's insane. So if you're listening to someone more than a few times, really the proper thing to do is to buy the music from them. We've all gotten really used to free music, and it isn't free. Somebody's paying, and it's probably the artist. And so if you want to keep listening to free music, and especially if you want to keep listening to a real expanse of free music, make sure that the smaller people can stay alive, because even the bigger people are barely making any money off of those streams. Hey, Emily. Nice to see you. Good morning, afternoon, I suppose, at this point. Do you have any thoughts about streaming? I'm sure this will get you all head up. I don't know at what point you joined me in the talking about the importance of buying things as you're streaming them. And maybe one of the things you could do would be to buy the CD. Maybe you don't listen to a ton of a CD, and then listen to it on Spotify or something if that's easier for you in your car or in your day or at work, etc. But please know that what you're doing is paying for a thing that someone has made, and that they are also still paying for in terms of production, etc. Oh yeah, totally. Okay, so Emily has just said to talk about Patreon and YouTube channels. So that we've talked about number one, we've talked about number two. Let's talk about number six, which is social media. So in general, especially for small people like me, and like maybe some of you, it makes a really big difference to people like booking agents, if we're cold calling someone, if someone is not in our immediate community or isn't close enough to see a show. Please like social, if you don't actually hate someone, right? Like, don't go around clicking like if you don't like something. But if you like someone's work, please actually click like. It makes a difference. And Emily just said, live music is good for you. Live music is good for you. It's good for the people who are making it, and it's good for the people who are hearing it. So yeah, so if someone says, hey, I'm in this band, and you hear their music and they're great, take the 5 minutes. It is, I know time is money, but technically it is also free, or this could be your considered donation of time. Take the 5 minutes and go like all of their social media. Everything. If you use Spotify, go like them, follow them on Spotify, their YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the things, their band page. It actually makes a really big difference to smaller people to then get booked. So it helps the music continue to happen. And as Emily Zisman is saying, live music is good for you. So like all of the things, Patreon especially, if there's an artist who you love, and you have $1 a month to give to them or $5 a month to give to them, you're paying for a continued service rather than a one-off kind of thing, but it goes a really long way. And for those of us who are touring, for making albums, etc., oh, things are happening here. Hi, Luann. Oh, I am, well, tall is relative. Luann is asking me about bigger people. I'm 5'8", which is tall, I guess, it's I think 2 inches above an average American woman, but who knows, you know. Thanks for asking. I guess I'm talking about smaller time artists, but I appreciate your holding me accountable. Yeah, Patreon. Go check it out. There are similar sites. I was actually trying to print out a list of them but I will post the list that I found on Willa Mamet Music after we talk. There are similar sites if for some reason you just don't dig Patreon. It really goes a long way to be having consistent contributions, sort of like, it's basically a CSA for music, right? So that as we thrive, as we fall, as we go through the vicissitudes of being an artist, you're with us. And so we can rely on some consistent support. And it makes a really, really big difference. Maybe it's an extra $500 a month or an extra $1,000 a month, but it's $500 or $1,000 a month that we can rely on, and that in itself goes, it just has an exponential effect in the hearts and minds and nervous systems of artists. Okay. Emily, did I get to your question? Oh, Emily also mentioned specifically about buying from artists. Not only does all of the money go to the artist, but then in the absence of a negative, you're not paying more fees that then get taken out of what the artist would have paid. So, so the money goes further. Okay, what else do we have on this list? Go to shows. Please go to shows. Buy tickets to the shows. And if you know you are going to a show, I can't actually stress this enough. If you know you are going to a show, please buy your ticket in advance. If you know you're going to a show, please, please, please buy your ticket in advance. It, again, with the nervous system of the artist, it's a kindness to us. But it actually helps, it helps then the generative energy of the show, and it helps whatever venue it is know to bring us back again. If we're doing well in a pre-sale, it goes a long way. And it's, you know, it's a new world and people do things last minute and we can text each other and cancel and all of the things. But if you know you're going, just buy a ticket. Chances are the ticket's going to be cheaper for you to do so also. So there's that. Hi, Anna. Oh yeah, no, I can't see you nodding, but thank you so much for telling me that you are. I love that. I can now see it in my mind's eye, seeing your curls like, here's the other thing about shows. Please invite your friends. Invite them on the internet. That's great. Invite them, but please invite them. If you're going to invite them on the internet, please invite them individually. Like actually click the little envelope and click invite, or send them a message through whatever service you're using, whatever platform you're using. Send a text message with a link to the show, etc. It's a little bit like calling 911, right? Like they tell you in any kind of first responder or CPR course or whatever, if there is any kind of emergency in a crowd and someone has just fallen over or something's on fire or there's a baby caught under a truck, God forbid, you don't just say, call 911, right? You turn to someone and you say, Barbara, call 911, assuming the person's name is Barbara. Because if you don't, it gets lost in the hysteria. So this is true of invitations as well. It's great if you share the post of a link of an event or a photo, whatever. Please actually invite people individually. See the calling the 911. Hey, AC. Nice to see your face. So we were just talking about the importance of inviting people individually to shows. Actually, Ann Carroll Mitchell, a fantastic musician in her own right, did this exact thing last night, a show that I was already going to. I got a text message from her saying, hey, I'm going to this show. It's going to be the last one from this band for a while. Are you free? Will you come with me? And I was so delighted because I was like, ha, this is on the list. And we're doing it right now. We're being such successful community members. And you're so welcome. I thank you for being here. And thank you for being awesome and sending me that text message last night. I did, in fact, make it to the show. It was for Madeline Taskin and her group Sarah Band. They're marvelous. Please go check them out. I will post a link in Willa Mamet music afterward. And it was really helpful to have the reminder, even though I knew I was going and all of the things, and just to get that text message was great. So thank you for that. What do I have more about this? Oh, so here's the thing. If it makes sense for you financially to do, if you know you're going to go and you know you're going to go with some friends, buy a few tickets in advance. Like maybe you can be the point person for your community that evening and they can reimburse you, or maybe everyone can send you their money and you can just make the one purchase or whatever. That can be really helpful. It helps me often if I know I'm going to a show, but someone else is dealing with the tickets. It just like takes one thing off of me. I can see you smiling in my heart, AC. So that can be a great thing to just like be the person who's got it. Maybe, you know, it's like book club, like everyone hosts at different times. Um, Although hopefully you actually want to hear the music you're listening to. I have funny feelings about book clubs. The other thing is that music and tickets, especially to shows, make marvelous gifts. And I think it's something that we've forgotten because we've started to take music so um, lightly as an event, as a thing that gets made, as a thing to do with one another. That if you're thinking of having a special evening or making a celebration or being with beloveds or someone's in town, yada yada, go see a show. Take someone to a show. I can tell you I do not remember a single thing that happened on my 13th birthday, but I do know that when I was 13, hey JJ, I do know that when I was 13, my mom took me to see Dar Williams open for Joan Baez at the Wiltern in Los Angeles. Well, I guess actually my mom took me to see Joan Baez and Dar Williams happened to be there. And it completely changed my life. I remember absolutely everything about the show. I remember everything about, everything about the theater and the way it smelled and the temperature and the music of those two women changed the shape of my life. And that was a real gift and could not have been replicated any other way. And I offer you the possibility that you could give that to somebody else. I would, thank you, Luann. I would love to open for Dar Williams. That would be a delight. I think she's going to be at the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley in like March. Anyway, I will certainly be in the audience. Yeah, there was, I remember sitting next to my mom and Dar Williams is singing, you know, she's singing the Christians and the Pagans. And she's, I mean, this is more than 20 years ago. So I think that was Mortal City that she was touring. She's singing the Christians and the Pagans and the pointless yet poignant, et cetera, et cetera. And my mom at some point turns to me and goes, I think she's a witch. And I was like, awesome. And then a few songs later, she goes, I think she's a lesbian. And I was like, gosh, I really hope so. In any case, life-changing. What else do we have here? Oh, credit. Let's talk about credit for a second. Um, Again, with everyone thinking that music is free and just happens, um, and you know goes on in the background and whatever, rather than 30 or 50 or 100 years ago where music was the event and you wouldn't read a book through it or fuss through it or whatnot. Um, if you use music, if you use a quote of someone's lyrics, if you sample them, if you know, on and on and on, please credit them. Hey, Erin, how's it going? We're talking through a whole list for those of you who have just arrived, a list which will be up at some point on my website, Willa Mamet Music. I have a blog there called No Word Wasted. But we're talking through this list of how to be a hero for independent music. And I just got talking about credit, how important it is to not just credit someone, but what really helps further is make a path from whatever you've made to that person's music, right? So if you use something in a video or on your website or in a show, put it in the program, anywhere you can put someone's name or their website, their Facebook link, their Spotify, whatever it is, it's only going to help. And the fact of the matter is there's just enough to go around. You know, we live in a world where there is a lot of idea that only one person can go to the top. And the fact of the matter is that there's never going to be too much music. Thank heaven. And there's never going to be too few people to listen either, right? Like population is not our problem. Hey, Christina, how's it going? So whatever we can do to be crediting and sharing the focus in that way to my mind, is really only going to help everybody. And the fact of the matter is, honestly, I don't know about the rest of you who are listening, who are independent musicians, but if you look at, you send an email to 1,000 people, maybe 300 open, maybe 20 click on something. So if you're at all worried that, you're sharing the focus in that way is going to pull focus from you, it probably isn't. But it will go a long way in terms of adding just a little bit, even by way of name recognition, to that person's whole scenario. So if you use something, credit it. I feel even a little tricky about saying, if I'm covering Jen Cork's song and I say, here's a song by me, and I don't say somewhere in there pretty obviously that it's not actually my song, that it's my cover, or that I've been inspired by this magnificent artist, etc. That to me feels kind of borderline. So something to think about. I don't know, what do you all think? You're here, or at least the internet says that you are. I'd be curious to know what you think about offering credit and how to go about doing that. Floating all boats. What is this? Luann, what do you mean by floating all boats? Well, while you're thinking about that, oh, one last thing about the credit. Please ask. Even though our things are public, music is public, and maybe it's on all of the platforms, etc. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you feel that way, Luann. I learned from some wonderful people about how to make it better for everyone, and I would say that you're one of them. Oh yes, all boats will rise with the tide. Thank you. See, look at this, community behavior. Everyone's helping. So please ask before you use something. Even if, and I would say especially if it's your best friend or someone you know well, etc. You can't be too generous, and beyond generous, even like courteous. Right? Somewhere between something that includes generosity, but also kindness, but also consideration. Just courtesy is the thing which paves all roads. And yeah, so ask and then credit up, down, and left and right. Oh, as per the previous discussion about calling 911, for those of you who missed it, I was talking about how important it is to invite people to shows, but to invite them personally. You'd credit the original statement, but you don't know who said it first. That's really sweet and hilarious. Probably, now I'm paving roads. Okay, I'm sorry. This is my first time I've ever done this, and I'm getting completely distracted. I'm so delighted that you're writing in. Thank you. So apropos of, you need to say someone's name and look them in the eye when you ask someone to call 911. Similarly, for inviting people to shows, send them a text with a link to the show, invite them personally, whatever it is that you do. Oh yes, okay, so actually this was exactly what I was getting to. So AC has written, etc., about booking people for their local thing. Even if you can't pay them, the exposure is awesome. So I have a couple of thoughts about that. I think exposure is wonderful. I think it's also dangerous. I think musicians can die of exposure because there is a point at which, and it changes and it might come and go, and I would love to know what you think about this, that it actually doesn't help, or the seesaw teeters dramatically as to whether or not it helps and how much it helps to simply be seen, if in fact that isn't leading to paying your rent or paying for gas or eating. So I would say if you're helping someone get exposure, or if you, a musician yourself, are looking to get exposure, make sure to be valuing yourself and make sure to be valuing that person. And it might be that you can value them in speech only, and even that matters. To say, I can't pay you, or I can't pay you much, but I would maybe you can pay someone $25, and that's really what you can pay. But to say, I would really like to acknowledge that you are doing work, and I'm going to pay you this $25, and I'd like to make sure that you're fed. Maybe if someone's touring, you could say, I'm going to make sure you have a cozy, safe place to sleep tonight, yada, yada. I think it's actually really, really important to have the value of the work that musicians do acknowledged and valued properly. And to the other part of your point, AC, I think it is really important to make sure that you're providing little opportunities that could lead to bigger ones. Oh, I'm playing a party, or I'm hosting a party, please come play. And actually, I can pay you, or I can't, but as I said, I can do these other things. Or if you are someone who has access to people who do pay people for music, alley-oop, you know, you don't have to be a fancy booking agent with a shitty suit and a bad attitude to make those connections. You can say, hey, person who books people for music, or hey, my favorite venue, or etc. I know this great band, and yeah, Genesis is saying they considered quitting music because of exposure, right? Because there's a certain point at which the free gigs, as Jen says, lead to free gigs. On the other hand, sometimes free gigs lead to amazing things. Sometimes we have to be openers and get paid bubkiss in order to then form wonderful and lasting relationships with artists we care deeply about and go on tour with them for 5 months. I think the hard part is that there isn't a hard and fast rule. And you have to figure out what's right for yourself as an artist. But for those of us who aren't artists, I think it's important to keep in mind that we're working, and that matters, and we still have lives that we pay for. I've just lost my plot for a second, and I want to, what were we talking about? Oh, that connecting venues, etc. Right? You don't have to be a fancy person with a title to make that connection. Like if your local bar has consistent live music, you love it, you know that they would be a good match with this artist you've been listening to, who you know, introduce them somehow, right? Tell the artist about the venue and say, oh, the owner's name is such and such. Maybe if you know the owner, say, oh, I know this musician, I like them a lot, they'd be a great addition. Thanks for being here, JJ. See you soon. That will go somewhere. If you have a CD, give it to them, or maybe, you know, send them a text with the link or whatnot. A little bit does go a long way, and the fact of it goes a long way. Genesis, I really appreciate your saying that even a small amount matters. Yeah. Being erased is one of the worst feelings that humans have, as far as I can tell, and being seen is one of the most important. It's why representation in media is so deeply important to women and people of color, for example, that if we don't see ourselves in the world, we start to think that we don't exist. And so when we work or we make of ourselves an offer into the world, and that isn't acknowledged in some concrete, real human way, things start to fizzle. And by fizzle, I mean die. Die is awful, but the reverse is true too, right? It doesn't take much to feel seen and heard by other people, and that makes the music thrive also. So we're nearing 12:30. I haven't gotten through my list yet. As you see, and those of you who know me, it can be a little verbose. But I'm wondering if you have any questions, and if you would leave them here so that I can go study for answers. And I will be back next Monday, I think I can do that, back next Monday, and go through the rest of, talk through the rest of my list. And hopefully, if you have some questions, I can find some answers for them. Or if there are things that you further want to talk about, I would love to talk about them with you. Bring your friends, have a cuppa. Please, now that I have done this once, I will have a better idea of how to be responding to you in the comments as we talk, or in my speech as we talk. And I'm so grateful that you've spent a half hour with me here. Again, my name is Willa, and I am, for those of you who don't know me, an independent musician and just a general loudmouth. And I so deeply want to see music thrive. So let's do that together. with all the questions and all the conversations and all of the music. Thank you so, so much for being here. And yeah, ask me your questions. I'll see you next week, Monday at noon. Okay. Bye. About it. So last week we talked about a bunch of you chimed in, which was so great. And I have my notes, so forgive me for looking down and not at you. But we talked about buying music directly as possible from the artists that you love, not only because the most of the money goes to them, but also the energy goes to them, and how lovely it is to have someone look you in the eye and hand you their cash and say thank you, and that you get to see the person that the music affects and get to offer them your thanks in return. How lovely that is. The importance of buying the music you stream often. Streaming gives artists so very little, and musicians can die of exposure. Kat, it's not happening. You're staying inside for the next half hour. Going to shows, buying tickets, buying them in advance is a really big deal. It really, really helps. In this sort of texty last minute world, we tend to wait, and it actually helps artists get booked if venues know that people show up for them. And it's really nice for the venues to know that in advance. And it's nice for us as the artists to know that people are actually coming. So buy your tickets in advance. Invite your friends to shows if you can. Hey, Christy, good morning or afternoon, as the case may be, depending on where you are. It's really helpful if you can manage to be the point person to like buy a couple tickets for your friends and have them hit you back, or buy them as gifts if that's something that works for you. Actually buying tickets to shows is a big deal. And in that, I want to add, I'm also a body worker when I'm not, hi gorgeous. I'm a body worker when I am not, hi Mimi, hi Emily. When I'm not a musician, I squish people. And the days of the $60 massage are gone. Likewise, the days of the $10 show. $10 show and a $60 massage are not things which actually feed the person who is offering them, right? It's nice and convenient, and 10 is such a lovely number, and 60 is so handy for dollars and minutes and things like that. But if someone has done any training, hey, if someone's done any training whatsoever, or for example, put in any time to make the music, $10 and $60 respectively just don't actually make sense. And it feels like a lot to shell out maybe 15 or maybe 20 or maybe more. And especially for larger artists who you love, you certainly do shell out more. And that's because that's actually close to a living wage, or closer to a living wage. And so we get so used to music being free because it's around us all the time. And unlike the days of yore when listening to music was an event because it couldn't be replicated, here it is, and it's so easy, and it's so omnipresent, and it's just like the paint on the walls. But someone had to paint those walls, and it was a musician, and they probably have 7 other sources of income that they have to work for all day long, and just like you, and it's a big deal. So yeah, $10 show. Speaking of which, I'm going to jump in my list to the tip jar. And I can imagine some of you who have just joined probably have a few ideas about the tip jar. Holy God, this cat is driving me insane. Excuse me. You come in, you go out, you come in, you go out. This is it. This is what you get. There's no more of these in the next half hour. Sigh. So, I think a lot of people don't know that a tip jar means please put money in here. Because what I think a lot of people don't understand is if there's a tip jar, someone probably isn't getting paid by the establishment. Or if they're getting paid by the establishment, it's so very little that it's really more of a courtesy. Precisely. Maybe saying not just music, but their experience and their time and all, like the nap is part of the job. But not just the nap, it takes a long time to tell everyone that you're playing and that you're making your social media posts and driving somewhere and all of the things. It's almost impossible to clock the hours the way you would for a 9 to 5 job. So, uh, so a tip jar, right? Okay, so please leave a tip, unless you feel um, literally accosted by the music, unless you want to leave a note in that thing that says shrivel up and die and don't abuse me anymore. And by the way, please don't do that. But unless that is like your deep, deep urge, please leave a tip. Yes, you wandered into a situation that perhaps you didn't expect to pay for, but there you are. And indeed, you have been listening. And especially if you actually enjoyed the music, please leave a tip. Hey, Frank. We're talking about tip jars here. Please leave a tip. And I would be actually curious, as a wandering musician yourself, and for those of you who are already here, what you think an appropriate tip actually is. I would say, at the very least, something tantamount to if you had bought that song, if you listened to a song, if you had bought that song on the worldwide interwebs, right? So somewhere in the range of at least $1 or $2 if you've listened to a song. And if you listen for any length of time, I think $5 is pretty appropriate. If you've listened for a significant length of time, like if you've been somewhere for a long time, you've been really listening to the music and you like it, you just went to a concert. Please pay accordingly. And again, that's not something that you perhaps signed up to do and you maybe didn't know it was happening, but there you are and it happened and you were witness to it. And the secret ingredient also is that you enjoyed it. Please show your enjoyment. And lastly, on this thought, and again, I'd welcome all of you, please, to chime in. If you can't, right? If you're another artist who has 8 sources of income or 8 streams of income, and sometimes they don't feel like sources, and you're feeling extra strapped, but you really loved it, leave a note. Go say hi. Write something on Facebook. Make a post, right? These things actually go a long way in the former more in the heart of a musician. Hi, love, Luann. We're talking about tip jars. They go a long way in the heart of a musician. To get a note like that in a tip jar means everything. If you wrote on your dollar bill, that's awesome, right? Like that goes on the dashboard forever. Yeah, and something like the things that we can do for free for one another that take a little bit of time, and sure, time is money, but making a post about someone you saw in some random lobby somewhere that blew your mind, you tag them and you put that out, and then you're using social media for the purpose, or at least one of the purposes to my mind, that it's deeply good for, which is weaving the web, right? Alerting people far away to someone who they weren't there for. They get to hear them and you're carving a pathway. Hi, love. I'm so glad you're here. Luann, what would you say is an appropriate amount of money to leave in a tip jar if you've been listening to a musician and you liked them? Thoughts? While we are waiting, I'm going to check on this. Oh yeah, so while I'm waiting for you two or you all to possibly chime in about a tip jar, I will say, as for, oh, here we are. So Christy's saying they were out to dinner. There was a guitarist doing really cool things, $20 and a note. Okay, so that $20 and that note, I promise you, yeah, $5, great. That $20 and that note are an investment in that man's soul. I can only imagine that they were, that to get a 20, also like to get a 20 in a tip jar just feels so good. Like, oh yeah, so much more than 21s. Also buying groceries with 21s, you just get like funny looks. But that's not the point. The point is getting that 20 and that note, I bet, boosted him in a way that 21s and no note maybe wouldn't have come close to. So thank you for doing that. Also, who was that guy that you listened to? Was he amazing? And where were you? And will you give us a link to his music? So as for the $5 tip, I I would say I got schooled by a millennial the other day to not say caffeinated beverage because they thought that that was a term that got thrown around too much. But how much did you spend on your last caffeinated beverage? And did you really think about that? Oh, I'll go get a cup of coffee. I'll go get a cup of tea. Oh, you know, um, for those of you in the Bay, I'll go get a kombucha on tap or a beer or a cocktail, whatever. Those are things that tend to start somewhere in the $3 to $5 range and go as high as, you know, some fussy fizzy drink somewhere is like 17 or 12. And thank you. Okay, so Frank says, if it's a pass the hat or tip jar club or a bar gig, then it should be at least equivalent to a mixed drink or a glass of wine. Right, so we're talking about easily $10. Thank you so much for chiming in. How do I feel about loose change? Fine, as long as it's rolled quarters and there's like, you know, 20 or 50 chunks of them neatly stacked in a little box. Alternatively, change is inevitable. Every once in a while I get like a penny and a couple dimes and I think like, okay, well, that's a little weird, but on the other hand, someone was giving me what they felt they had, and maybe that involved actually like scraping the bottom of their pocket, and that's a kindness, you know, I'll take it. Pennies are still money, and the exchange is still real, so that feels good. All right, let's see. Any other questions or comments, concerns, or cereal box behavior that you all have about tip jars before I move on down my list here? My cup of tea. I will say, while I'm pausing just for the internet to work, I was at the Women's Herbal Conference this summer, and there was a potter named Zoe who made these exquisite mugs, and I bought a few of them, and I love them. And if you'd like to look her up, she's on the Instagram as Herb Nerd Zoe, and all of her pottery has plant matter in it, and there's education about the plants there available. And I think her things are just absolutely lovely, and I'm so grateful to have handmade things in my life. When am I back in Portland? Off topic. Hopefully this fall, maybe before. When are you coming to play in the Bay? / where are you playing these days? So Frank. Okay, Mimi says, try to leave at least $10, currently on a limited income, so I can only do 5. That's so respectable. And if you could only do 1, that would also be respectable. What I'm getting at is not so much that I mean, on the one hand, like, we strive to pay living wages to the people who are doing things, and on the other hand, we can do what we can do. And it's more just I bring it up to like have a discussion about the consciousness around that thing isn't happening for free. That person is working, and let us acknowledge them. So if what you can do is acknowledge them with a dime and a penny and a piece of eye contact and a nod and a thank you, to me, that's real. Like, if that's what you've got, then that's what you give, and that's beautiful. And I appreciate your chiming in on that. Oh, so here's another thing about if that's what you've got, and then that's what you give. So last week we talked about buying directly from artists and the importance of how much more money goes directly to the artists and how much less money goes to middle people who are doing whatnot. Hey, Genesis. And so basically how when we buy directly from artists, there's less leak. Like, the artist gets more money, gets more of our thanks and more of our energy. Hey, Katie. Hey, Jeannie. Oh, Gina. What have you missed? Well, there was a whole portion in Greek. There was a dance number. I don't know. It'll be on the video. You can look at it later. I'm glad you're here now. So I'm talking about the importance, sort of recapping from last week and recapping from earlier in the conversation, the importance of buying directly from the artist as much as you can. So if you go to a show, hey, Katie, please don't do this. That was awesome. I'm going to go buy it off the internet. Please don't. If you know you want it and you know you love it, please, thanks. Please just buy directly from the artist. It's going to be so much better for them. If you don't want to listen to a CD, that would be useful feedback for that particular artist, right? Tell them, I don't listen to CDs. Do you have any sort of digital thing? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe you buy it from them right there. Maybe you can Venmo them or buy it from their site kind of while you're thinking about it, would be great. But the other thing is, if you do sometimes listen to CDs, like I have a CD player in my car and I listen to them occasionally, and you know you're not going to remember to do the thing and all of the list of like, I'm going to do this now, get a CD, and instead of using it for a coaster, because I don't know about you, but I just like can't really abide by coasters. Instead of using it for a coaster, take that CD and give it to somebody else, specifically perhaps the owner of your local venue, or maybe a DJ of a radio show that you love a lot. It's actually makes a difference. It costs about just under $3 to send a CD media rate. And so you've already bought this CD. You don't need a coaster. And you have an opportunity to weave a web and say to perhaps your local favorite Americana DJ, I just heard this incredible show, loved this person, went ahead and bought their CD, I've digitized it, and I would like to pass it along to you. I think it would fit great, blah, blah, blah. If you want to go as far as saying, you know, the best track or describing it or whatnot, but just kind of offering it into the stream would take a little minute, and it would take $3 on top of the CD cost that you've already bought. But if you want to be a hero for independent music, this is a thing you can do, right? And it just takes that tiny bit more time. The same again for, and if you don't have the CD or you don't want to share it or whatnot, you could even just write an email to that favorite DJ. Hey, do you know about so-and-so? Here's a link to their music. They're wonderful. And same goes for local venues. If there's a place that has a lot of music, like here in the Bay, we have the Ivy Room, which is the best place ever. Street teams and ambassadors. Okay, I feel like maybe this is what I'm talking about. But Emily's just asked about thoughts on street teams or ambassadors, and I think this is a little bit, I would love for the rest of you to, can you be a little bit more specific about, Emily, what question you're asking when you ask that question? Hey, Haley. So talk to your local venue if there's an artist that would work well for them, or the reverse. If you know someone who is a touring musician or coming to your town or whatever, and there's a place that you think would be a great fit, then tell them, say, oh, we've got this place, the Ivy Room. If you're coming through and you want to play in a small venue that's also a listening room and you'll get some crossover with people and yada yada, this would be a great place for you, right? It's kind of no skin off your nose to mention it to a friend, and it can go really, really far. Mobilizing fans to help get the word out for perks like free entries to shows or merch. Yeah, yes, please. I think that if you, I'm sort of a little bit at a loss as to what social media engagement actually means. And I don't know about you, Emily, but like, what is it that you have found gets people's attention in that way? Perks to fans, sure. Like, hey, I'll give you a t-shirt or a ticket if you come, if you invite all of these people, blah, 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 to shows. I mean, I think that's speaking as a musician, and that's wonderful. And I just sort of lost the plot of that thought. Do you ever have that where you're like, do, and you're going along and suddenly the thought just like digs its way to the other side of the earth for no particular reason you can discern? It's a shame when it does it on camera in front of friends and strangers, but there you go. I think what I'm talking about, actually, Emily, is kind of putting on the table these ideas to be creating a culture where people do this anyway, right? That it's an act of love, it's an act of courtesy, it's an act of community to just say, I've got 5 minutes, I'm gonna invite these few people to my friend's show. Ah, thank you. I'm gonna invite these people to my friend's show. Or I know two people in Toronto, and this wonderful person I know is going to Toronto to play. So I'm going to invite those. I don't live in Toronto, but I know those two people, so I'm just going to go ahead and invite them, right? That if we remember actively, if we can be in the act of remembering and then acting upon, we are in community, the world is round, we're all neighbors, and small actions make a difference, right? Like instead of saying, oh, she put up a thing, people will see it if they want, it'll be fine. Like, what could I do? What could I do? I don't know, right? But you can do. You could invite people and maybe even remind them, or maybe say, I bought you this CD for Chris Mahana Kwanzaa, and it's wonderful and I love it. And that could go a long way. The other thing that I would like to just put here and then have a larger conversation at another time is about house concerts. Because depending on the kind of music, because not all music is appropriate for a house concert and not all houses are appropriate for music. Maybe I actually don't agree with that last sentence. House concerts are both easier and harder than you think to do. And they are so wonderful, and they're such a marvelous, marvelous way to enact community and to support music and to have music heard and encouraged and nested in ways that actually support the artist, because the overhead tends to be pretty low. And I'm working on a little tome for you called So You Want to Have a House Concert. So that might well be actually the next time we do this, might be So You Want to Have a House Concert. Meanwhile, what else do we have on our list here? Oh, if you're using streaming apps, and yeah, right? So like here's someone who says, I have a house, we could have a concert in it. That's basically all it takes, aside from finding someone to have that, to make the music in the house. I mean, there's a few details like, you know, mugs and bathrooms and charging and, you know, how you feel about your privacy and where you want your address on the internet and stuff. But basically what it takes is, I have a house, we could have a concert in it. Well done, Haley Cohn. Thank you so much. Also, speaking of Haley Cohn, if you're looking for gifts for said Chris Mahana Kwanzaa Solstika, Satori Foods, is that right? Can you give us a link here? This woman makes some of the most beautiful chocolates you will ever have in your life, and I cannot recommend them more highly. So delicious. And I'm so delighted to have your sweetness in our conversation, Haley. Thank you. Yeah, so you want to have a house concert. Right, so next conversation will be, so you want to have a house concert. And I kind of like this like half hour on Mondays thing. So maybe you'll, what is next Monday? Well, we'll see. If it's not a holiday, I will totally be here. Let's see. Okay, satorifoods.biz. There you go. Find yourselves some delicious chocolates for yourself or for a gift, and maybe find yourself making a house concert at Haley's house in Montpelier, Vermont at some point. Oh, if you're okay, so here's the last thought before we sort of get to closing for today. Next time will be, so you want to have a house concert. And meanwhile, if you're streaming things, if you're using a streaming platform and you make a playlist, please include smaller artists with bigger ones, because it gets everyone sort of tumbled into the algorithm differently, such that people sort of rise in the ranks of options like Genius or Discover or whatever, so that they get seen, we get seen a little bit more. Again, as someone who's listening, it's a totally free thing to do, right? To just mix up your artists. And I will say also, please, on those playlists, make sure that you're including women artists and make sure that you're including artists of color. Ditto for those underrepresented groups, gets us more seen and more mixed in with, you know, the apex predators. So big thing you can do, big/free thing that you can do. I feel like maybe we have gone over this list in the course of these 2 weeks. I mean, not in depth, but a little bit here and there. Does anyone have any other questions for today? Reviews of things we've already touched upon, things you wanted to bring up while we're here and we have a juicy community that has congregated for the moment. Nope. Silence. Bueller. Well, I will say in that vein, then, before you go on to do something else today, if there is a musician whom you love, I would encourage you, please, to go spend 5 minutes and invite a handful of people to their shows personally. Like, use whatever message, send a text or make a phone call or something to that effect. Invite people. Go and spend 5 minutes making a connection. I'm glad you like the mug. Yeah, Mimi, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You can type. It's good. We're here. Um, and maybe make a practice of that. Like, once a day, spend 5 minutes while you're fucking around on social media to do it in the interest of someone else. Like, give the gift of that 5 minutes to someone else, or a bunch of someone else's, or more than 5 minutes. But if you wanted to, you could go, hey, Bergen, you could go every day and pick one person or one band or one piece of music that you love, and just make some connections. Luann, who is not only the Bay Area's most wonderful bookseller, but also evidently my agent, is asking next show for me. Thank you, Gina. I am playing at the Lost Church in San Francisco this coming Friday, December 14th, before the marvelous Kate Burkhart. And those tickets are $15 in advance and $20 at the door. My set will be ASL interpreted. We're working on getting Kate's set ASL interpreted as well. The site is not wheelchair accessible yet. I think they're working on that. And it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful evening. Let's see. So please join us. All over my Facebook, there's links to the tickets. Or if you just look up my name and the Lost Church, San Francisco. It's a marvelous room. It's like being in a house concert, but at a venue. Somehow they have managed this. Okay. Oh, okay, cool. So Mimi's recommended creative coaching. Melissa Kirk is awesome. How to create a buzz. Sweet. Thank you. That's marvelous. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is this Melissa character in the Bay? Is she somewhere else? Does she do like sessions afar, sessions close? Excuse me. Or is it more a sense of like reading her work? This is such a funny medium, to like see the comments going, and it's like kind of a conversation, but also kind of not a conversation. And oh, Richmond. Okay, remote sessions. Great. Thank you so much. So for those of you who want some, hey Tina, want some creative coaching around marketing yourselves, go check out Melissa Kirk. And I would say, as for marketing yourself, keep in mind that you're offering the world something good, which is your work, and take yourself seriously enough to do that. Don't apologize. And if someone says you're annoying them by marketing yourself, then, do the appropriate thing and say you're sorry and back up and move to the side. But maybe I will leave on this message. One of my great heroes, Gina Breedlove, who is one of the most spectacular capital V voices that I have ever had the honor to be in the room with. I have watched her sell out her Yoshi's Oakland show every year for many, many years, and every year put on a show unlike any other. She's so stupendous. And she calmly, quietly just keeps putting out what is essentially the image from her postcard. Beloveds, here's the show. This is happening. Here's the link. Here's the show. This is happening. Here's the link. So as musicians, I think, or artists, whatever it is that we do, whatever work we do, important to know that we're actually not saturating the world by continuing to remind people, especially if we do it with grace and kindness, and especially if we believe in our offering. And I think the same can be true for those of us who are wanting to be actionable in community about music, of saying, reminding other people that the music exists, buying tickets, going to shows, inviting them, etc., that the reminders will not, it's probably not going to piss anybody off, and it will probably do some good. No, that sounds like tepid language, especially out of my mouth, who loves all the hyperbole, but I think it's true. So today, pick someone, take 5 minutes, invite some people to their shows, maybe suggest their music as a holiday gift. Maybe you want to go and buy a ticket as a gift. Go make some connections in the next 5 minutes, or in 5 minutes at some point in your day, for some music you love. Go be their ambassador. Go be their hero. Thank you all so much for joining me for this half hour and for the second installment of How to Be a Hero for Independent Music. And I will do my 5 minutes now, right here, on what is a not very ample bosom. Wild in Places I Wasn't Before. Dana Kurtz, one of the most spectacular musicians I have ever had the pleasure of hearing, let alone playing with. Mark just joined us. We played on your stage there at Stage 33 Live in Southern Vermont, Brattleboro. Excuse me, Bellows Falls. And Dana Kurtz, go listen to Dana Kurtz. You will not be disappointed. And I hope I get to see you all and hear your comments, read them rather, next week. And if not next week, then another Monday soon. But I will post as soon as I know when that will be. Thank you all so much for joining me. And write to me with your questions, and then I'll know how to go get some good research and find some good people to bring you for How to Be a Hero for Independent Music. All right. Happy Monday, loves.